You know what it is, man. This one is about Hitler's birthday. They call it 88 Day. Hitler's birthday celebration in the USP federal prisons. I'm going to give you all a breakdown, but just sit back and enjoy the ride. All right? All right, Unique Mecca audio, man. Let me sit back, man. I'm going to tell you about a faithful tale of how the brands, the Aryan Brotherhood, the skinheads, the dirty white boys, this is how all of them celebrate Hitler's birthday in the federal prison. I'm not going to make this too long because I want to make this to the point and I want y'all to understand what is really happening here. Now, April 20th is Hitler's birthday. So all the white guys, all the white brands, all the, I don't even know what to call them, because, racist, I mean, I'm trying to find a politically correct word. So y'all put in the comments so I get it right for the next video, because this is not a disrespect to them, because they just have pride in their own people. That's what was taught to me, by a dude named Vern that was from up by Sacramento, up that area. I was with him in ADX Supermax, Vern told me straight up, he said, he said, it's not that we racist, it's that we have white pride, just like you have black pride, and Chinese have, Chinese pride. You know what I mean? Virgin Islands have Virgin Islands pride. So this is what he explained to me, So he said, you feel like you're more superior than me as the white race, and I feel like I'm more superior than you as the black race. And you had to respect that. But see, that's how men have dialogue when you in a dangerous environment like that, because the one word could spark something so vicious that it's blood everywhere. You know what I mean? Blood everywhere. So now Hitler's birthday is on April 20th. All the white gangs get together. They get the, they put their wine up, they brew, they get their joint going, and they start drinking, and when they start drinking, they start acting a fool. But let me tell you a faithful tale about a white dude that came there from West Virginia. I'm sure I might have mentioned him, but right now he belongs in this Hitler 88 Day birthday celebration. Now, it was a white dude came in, he had, clean-cut white kid, blonde hair, blue eyes, no tattoos on him, no nothing. When he came in, he was real cool. He hitched up under me, and he saw my swag, and he wanted to holler at me, which I understood wasn't a problem, So me and him kicking it in, I could tell the dude is feeling my vibes and my stilo. So as we talking, he's telling me that, yo, when I go out, I'm gonna, just go to the school, get my education in, go to psychology, take the classes. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. All right. So now they come and they release us to the pound. When they release us to the pound, this same white dude, they put him in another unit, me in another unit, right? About 10 days later, within the first 10 days, because the bus came in, it was like 33 of us on the bus. In 10 days, about 15 dudes that came with us got stabbed up and ran off the bus. So this white dude ran up on me and started talking to me, and I didn't even recognize him. You know what I mean? He had, a bald head, all the way down like the skinheads wear it. So he's talking to me like, hey, what's up, Unique? And I'm looking, I'm like, they see the look on my face. He said, it's me, Johnny. I looked, I said, oh, snap, you cut your hair off. He had long hair down his shoulders, like a hippie. And now he got a bald head. I said, damn, you cut your hair off. He said, yeah, I had to do it for the brand. I said, oh, okay. You know what I mean? So I left it alone. White dude doing his own time. I'm doing my own time. He said he's doing it for the brand. Cool, do it for the brand. So now we go back. And then I see him again in another 10 days. Now, 25 days later, he come back and he said, hey, we still here. There's only 7 of us left from our busload. They said that's a record after 25 days, you know? But now this time, he got tattoos all on one side of his face and a big SWAT sticker on his head. And it's a dude that came in with blonde hair and blue eyes. And I'm wondering, like, what the, you know? So I said, what's up with all the tattoos? He said, nah, you know, I had to show that I take allegiance to the brand. So I took some tattoos that signified the brand, you know? And on the black side of his face, he only had one tattoo, and it's like right over his cheekbone, right in this area, and it was a spider web. So I said, "Yo, what's up? What's up?" Everybody hates spiders. So I'm saying, when you go home and your girl see you with this spider, how's she gonna want to kiss you on the face, especially if she's 9 times out of 10 scared of spiders? And he said, nah, I gotta do what I gotta do to survive in here. I said, do what you gotta do. You know, now I got about 10 tattoos on this side and one spider web on this side. I said, yo, what they got you doing? You know? He said, nah, right now, my detail is to sharpen the knives in the yard. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I sharpening knives in the yard. He said, yeah. He said, you know how you be sitting over there by the bathroom and you be sharpening your knife on the low? And I said, yeah, you be seeing me. He said, yeah. He said, well, they like the way you be doing it, so they told me to take the other bathroom in the soccer field. Because the way the yard is set up, it got the baseball field, you know, and then it got, you know, and that's fenced in. And it's one long yard. It's fenced in, and then they got the basketball court and the handball court, and that's fenced in. And then it got the soccer field, that's fenced in. And then it got the pavilion under the building, and that's fenced in. Everything is fenced in, like with dogs in a kennel. So now we all up under the joint, and he's telling me, yeah, they told me to use the bathroom down there by the soccer field to not get in your way. So I see him out there at lunchtime. I go out there, you know, my jaw was already sharp, point, like a needle, you know. So, you know, I stick it in my waistband and I go do what I gotta do, and I walk over there, you know. Yo, Jay, I'm doing it live, son. You know, if you want to say something, let me know. If not, I call you back. I'm doing a video right now. All right. All right, give me 20 minutes, man. All right, so we over there. And while we over there, I got my little joint with me, and when I got my joint with me, yeah, when I got my joint with me, he says, you know, is this sharp enough? And he shows me a knife, right? And I feel it, and the point was still square. I said, no, it's definitely not. You know, I said, it's definitely not right, because it's supposed to be point like a needle. That way when you push it in them, and a matter of fact, you want to take your fingernail clipper and you want to clip about 3 lines on the top, on the end, so when you push it in them, you could turn it, and those 3 lines that look like fish scales, they would catch his insides, and hopefully, you know, and I know the rat bastards is gonna hate me saying this, but I said hopefully, you know, it'll catch their intestines, and you can snatch their intestines out when you know, put that thing in them, you know? And he said, oh my God. I said, dude, what do you think those knives are for? And he's like, nah, I'm just saying, you know, I thought they were just carrying them for protection. I said, no, they're for if they got a beef, or if they have somebody they need to put it in, they're gonna put it in, you know? I said, that's why, and I'm gonna give you some game now, you know, because I make my own knives, so I don't need yours. But you know, you're not allowed to sell knives to any other race, you know what I mean? Because that's the first step, and they're going to kill you. I said, but if I need one, you can give it to me, because you know I'm not going to say nothing. You know what I mean? So I'm making him an ally by giving him jewels. Because like I said, the game is to be sold, not told. You know? So he said, nah, you know, if you need one, you can have one. I said, well, that one there look pretty good. Give me that. I'm going to finish that up, and I'm going to show you how it's done. Then I'm going to keep that one. So he gave me a real nice, what we call a little floater. The floater came off the fence. You know when you see fences, it got the bars that come this way and another bar come this way, and they go in an X. You know what I mean? That's what holds that fence up, because they roll it out. Well, those are aluminum, so they don't ring in a metal detector. So he had a nice flat one. It was a flat bar that went along the side of the joint, and he had it nice and small. And the way he made the handle around it was classic. So you could hold it and really put in work. So I took that joint, I went and got the fingernail clipper, chipped a couple of holes, took the file, and a dental floss, and in between that aluminum, and made my 3 fish scales, and I bring it back to him the next day, and I said, "Now this is what a knife looked like." He said, "Oh my God, that's beautiful," and he damn near orgasmed on himself. I said, "Yeah, when you put it in, you gotta always make sure when you stab them, you twist it. You gotta twist it and then pull it out, and pray for intestines." And he said, "Oh my God." I said, "Dude, you down with the brand? Them boys don't play. Because one thing for sure, two things for certain. Person could call." Me whatever they want, but I give props where it's due. Those white dudes are deadly in the federal prison. Deadly. Just like the Crips, you know what I mean? And the Bloods. Out west, they might not fight, because they grew up out there like we grew up in New York back in the day, California, maybe because they two considered cities. But out there, we knuckle it up, you know what I mean? And them Crips fight. There was a Crip there that I really like to see him fight. He fought all the time. You know what I mean? And y'all out there in the West Coast, they called him Tiny Killer. You know what I mean? When I first met him, they kept saying TK is what his name was. I was introduced to him as TK. So like, yo, this the homie TK. And he was a big, young, brolic, black, young dude. He was about 22 years old, but he was about maybe 6'4", 6'5", and he was solid and lift weights. Chest stood out there. They called it nest in California. His nest stood out this far. His arms was what they call in Cali dubs. The kid was like 21 years old. But I seen him whoop a dude as big as he is. I seen him put it on this dude, turned it over. He did his work, And I said, "Oh man, TK put in work." So somebody said, "Yeah, that's why they call him Tiny Killer." I said, "Tiny Killer?" He said, "Yeah, that's what TK stands for, because he came up on the big killer, you know what I mean? And he came under him, so they call him Tiny Killer." There was nothing tiny about this young man, you know what I mean? This boy was huge, but they called him Tiny Killer. And I used to like to watch Tiny Killer put in work out there in the yard at Lum Park. But let me fly back, because we riding now, I just wanted to take y'all on a little ride so y'all can understand how we do this at the Mecca for all the new people. So now, we gonna ride on back over to the Hitler 88 day, because that's the purpose of it. See, I get sidetracked, but I get back to where I'm at, So it was Hitler's birthday, and all the white dudes is drinking. They drinking they liquor, and, in jail they call, the hooch, the jailhouse wine, they call it liquid courage, something like on the streets how we call St. Ives and Cisco. Y'all from the hood remember Cisco. That was considered as liquid dust. Well, it's also liquid courage, because a coward drinks that, and then now he feels like he's a king and a warrior, So they drinking a liquid courage, and now, like I said, the white dudes put their work in. Like I said, I don't hate, I don't do none of that. But I got to keep it 100 at the same time. Now, the white dudes put their work in, so they drinking this liquid courage, but they're saying things that they normally wouldn't say without the liquid courage in their system. Meaning they walking around and they yelling, "Heil Hitler," to each other. Every time they walk up to each other, "Heil Hitler." "Heil Hitler." That's what they're doing, And we all sitting back, we watching TV, waiting on chow, playing cards, playing chess, and everybody's watching them because they real loud with it. "Heil Hitler." I'm like, whoa, Hitler. You know what I mean? Wasn't that in the 40s? And I'm like, "Oh, Hitler." And I'm like, oh, man, something ain't right here. So then they started yelling, "Death to the niggers." I said, whoa. You know what I mean? Now we have a problem, Houston. So they yelling, "Death to the niggers." You know what I mean? In my, what's his name? Funny dude. David Chappelle voice. "Death to the niggers." "Death to the niggers." You know what I mean? This is what they run around yelling. And they yelling all these racial slurs. And as they yelling these racial slurs, the blacks is looking like, what? Like, we couldn't believe it. Like, these white dudes stay in their lane, And if you cross their path, they crush something, or get crushed. But they crush something and they go hard, they push that knife and they go for the kill. That's one thing about white dudes. White dudes go for the kill. You know what I mean? You know, a black dude, we'll stab somebody. We always got in the back of our mind that we might get out one day, so we just poop, poop, poop. We poke him a couple of places and give him a couple of air holes just to make sure he's breathing right. You know what I mean? You know, you might want his arm or his shoulder breathing a little better. You know what I mean? So you pop him in the shoulder so you can, pop him in the leg, but you got to be careful of the leg because they got a vessel down there that they can bleed out. And you got to know these things when you're pushing the knife, because if not, you wind up getting another life sentence. But the white dudes, they going off with all these racial slurs, and as they carrying on, we're looking like, man. So we go out to the yard, So we go out to the yard, and they go out to the yard, and they meet up with other white dudes from their units. You understand what I'm saying? Because we was baffled that they did that. We should have just crushed them right on the spot. But we were just baffled. If we said, okay, they drinking, we trying to go home, you know what I mean? Let's hope that, they catch themselves and check themselves, But they caught the move. We go to the yard, and they go to the yard, and they still doing this. Hell, Hitler. You know what I mean? Death to the news. You know what I mean? Kill the Jews. I'm like, they saying all kinds of crazy racist. I'm like, hold up. So now they're out there and they carrying on and they bring more wine out there and more liquid courage and they're drinking and absorbing and drinking and they're pissy wet, right? So now, with all this going on, we sitting there and, the skinheads started, getting extremely drunk, But when they said death to the knifers, you know what I mean? That became a problem, you know what I mean? So, believe it or not, because I'm still stuck, but I got to keep it 100, A white dude walked over there and he said, "Hi, Hitler," in front of one of the homies. I'm going to introduce you to him later. I'm going to introduce you to him. His name is Tech, from Brooklyn. If y'all from Brooklyn, y'all know a big black dude named Tech, official gangster. This is probably one of the wildest, if not the wildest. Excuse me. All the homies that crossed paths with him, they all gave him the title as the undisputed number one. You know what I mean? No disrespect to Tech, but, it's a terminology we use, Crash dummy. You know what I mean? Because we called it crash dummy because he did a lot of things we wouldn't do. Meaning, he took it to the extreme. This dude had no tolerance. That's why we called him crash dummy, because he wasn't no dummy by far. But this dude, when the bus came, because we like to ride. Every Tuesday, the bus come in the penitentiary. You know what I mean? In the federal pens, The bus come in on Tuesday, and they send a note. They send like a list, to the jail. And when the jail comes, you get the numbers. Everybody's last four numbers mean something. My last four numbers was 054. That meant New York. 053 is Queens, I think. 052 is Jersey. I might be wrong. Y'all put it in the comments. But, that's how it was. I just know mine was 054, Queens 053, and I think Jersey was 052, maybe 051. But y'all put in the comments for the rat bastards and trolls. You know what I mean? I just want to say something. But anyway, so we in this joint now, and when they send the list, we look at the last four numbers and we know where the people is coming from, where they caught their case, and then they take the numbers and they separate and they give them to each car based on the numbers. So everybody got a 054, 053, 052 for Jersey. They give us the list. So when they give us the list, we know who's coming in. So we looking to see who's hot and we looking to see who's official so we can have their care package ready for them when they come, or we have that, as Banky Pound said. Make sure y'all check out Banky Pound. As Banky Pound said, I got to give props with it too. Where Banky Pound says that Bethlehem. You know what I mean? He's going to get that Bethlehem. So they got the Bethlehem out. Everybody got their drawing out. But this dude Tech, remember that's who we talking about. Pay attention, because this is how I ride. This dude Tech was so official, right? And so bloodthirsty. I love him to death. So bloodthirsty that on Tuesdays, he went and got 2 knives, and he's standing at the front gate, and he's not just looking for dudes from New York that's hot like everybody else, or like a Crip will be looking for Crips that's hot. DC look for DC that's hot. You know what I mean? But this dude Tech was there with two knives looking for anyone that was hot. So if somebody said dude was hot and they started stabbing him, Tech pulling out his joints and he's stabbing them too. You don't care if they white, Chinese, Russian, or Guatemalan. You know, Tech was just pushing that knife. He just wanted blood on his blade. You know what I mean? And that's what he was about, you know. But you got to, a round of applause, man, to Tech. Round of applause. Round of applause. Calm down, y'all, calm down. If anybody who knows who Tech is, tell Tech to contact me. I'd like to bring him up here because he was voted the undisputed most official brother from New York that put his work in because he was so aggressive and no tolerance. I myself had gave it to Big C. You know what I mean? If y'all know Big C from the Supreme Team, Harry Hunt, because I've seen Big C do some things. I'm going to tell you about some more things with Big C. But, you know, that's who I said. They said, nah, man, don't forget Tech. You know what I mean? And you can't forget Tech. You know what I mean? Because Tech was, you know, Tech was short for Tech 9. You know what I mean? Because he went off like a Tech 9 rapidly. Dang, 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 dang. Bethlehem, all up in you. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's where we at. So now they started pushing steel on each other. You know, I'm recording. Yeah. They started pushing steel on each other. And, you know, that's the way that is. They putting the steel in each other. And they just, you know, bloodthirsty. You know, that's how it was there. You know, 12 guys wound up getting stabbed before the guards even fired a shot. Because what happened when things like that happen is, you know, let me see how to put it. When things like that happen, the police sit in the tower, they got cameras all over the yard, so they seeing everything, but they like for it to pop off so they can get this footage. You know what I mean? And then they go back and look at it, and then they rate who had the best stabbing. You know. I think what they used to call it in Atwater. You know, they used to show that roll call for the police, because the police would come back and tell us who they saw, and they'll rate and they'll call it. You know, my man, there was a dude. You know, and I know y'all don't like me saying DC, but there was a dude out of DC named Face. You know. Face always won. He was a young kid, maybe 20, 21. Face always won, you know, the greatest hits of the week, you know. Anytime he was in the category, he won. I mean, if Face stabbed somebody this week, when they showed his stabbing on how vicious he put his work in, you know, they came back and they said, man, Face got the, you know, what they call it, man? They used to call it, police used to call it something. Face got the greatest hits. Face got the greatest hits of the week. You know, that's what they call it, the greatest hits of the week. So could you believe this? The greatest hits of the week because he stabbed this dude up so viciously. Is that crazy or what? Now, you know, let's ride back. You know, so you got 12 dudes got stabbed, police watching everything on the tape so they can go back, look at it, and they showed the training, show them the type of knives we had, and that. You know what I mean? And we having knives everywhere, buried everywhere in the yard, everywhere, you know, you just can't, you know. At that incident, a black dude got killed by the tower, and a white dude got killed by the tower, because that's how vicious it was on 88th day, Hitler's birthday. So, you know, if you youngins want to go to prison to experience this, feel free to do that, because they got plenty of room for you, and they don't have no problem whatsoever doing that, just so you understand, you know? But that's how that played out. 2 dudes got killed, 12 dudes got stabbed. You know what I mean? You know, regular, typical jailhouse thing. But right now, I want to give a shout out, you know what I mean, to everybody that's been representing with the Cash App. It's not everybody, but I just want to say out of 3 names. Harry Lee, you know, good looking. Expedito, Camacho, all right? Albert Green, you know, Cedric Long, Trey, the Chaser, Trey the Chaser, you know, Henry Lee again, thank you, Henry Lee, you know, Bands 3, you know, sent me something. Okay, big shout out to Rod, Jason Rosario, you know, Sean, Elijah, you know, Brandon Forney, who's this? Richard Saunders, Don Johnson, Ashley, Dot Tell, don't tell anyone, Oregon, Darrell Davis, Smitty, Roderick Basket. I say the rest tomorrow. You know what I mean? But I want to thank y'all, man, for representing the hustle, man. Cash App is on the screen. Make sure you hit the logo that say it was created in 2020, and there's no number 1 in my last name because somebody tried to make an account look similar to mine as possible. I thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure you cop the book of Raw in Harlem, and I want to show y'all the new sweatshirts we got, man. My man C1 from Philly, you know what I mean? Now he in the South somewhere. I ain't going to say where. He made me this, man. He sent me this hoodie. Let me hold this joint up for you. All right? This the new shirts that he made me, so you can cop your shirt, send your phone number. You know what I mean? Call me on the number 917-680-9091 to cop your hoodie. Got the hoodie and the T-shirts. You know what I mean? The hoodie and the T-shirts. Let's get it. The UMA team. All right? So that's where we at. Now, make sure y'all hit the like button and subscribe, please. That don't cost you nothing, but the Cash App is on the screen. But at least hit the like button, subscribe, and definitely hit an emoji. All right? Definitely hit an emoji. All right? Let's keep this thing going. We want over 2,000 likes. I heard after 2,000 likes, they throw it up in the algorithm, so let's work on these 2,000 likes. All right?
Cheers. Toast the crime. Toast the crime. The crime. The crime. The crime.
What?
Fresh out the can of 26, yeah. He back on the strip, getting back in the mix. Yeah. What he mentions a gift. You stand up 10 toes down, and I suggest you pay attention to this.
Real.
Take a little gully posse and put it in Harlem. He cut from the bottom, came up from the bottom. Drop the book, you should go and get it. The Instagram page and the YouTube, you could go and visit. Yeah. Then you could consider yourself LinkedIn. Sit front row and get Jews from a kingpin. How he went through it, so you ain't gotta go do it. To not pay attention would be stupid. Talking about a man that probably put your grandfather on. Probably the reason that him and your grams got along. A man that generated millions on the block, did his time, never squilling to the cops, Mecca audio. Get it live like 2 G's in the 90s. Drop top beamer so shiny. I let shorty go, she was whining. Treat her like my past, she behind me. Spin a couple bands on the Dapper Dan. You be back again, getting green like a Packers fan. No cap, it's a raw in Uptown. They be horn Uptown, Dominican bust downs. Now we on the positive, we got a lot to give. Now he trying to stop the kids from being inoperative. So take heed, homie, lend an ear. He started in Uptown, he gon' finish dead. But now it ain't about selling drugs, buying cars. It's about buying property to make the community yours. So we can give back to the youth them. Cause they the truth them. And bless up to all the root men.